Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
Welcome to Reflect, one of the world's first 100% AI-generated podcasts.
It is great to be here.
Yeah, we've got a really incredible deep dive for you today. Our mission, as always, is to take these massive, complex sources and just distill the ultimate nuggets of knowledge for you.
Right, getting past all the noise.
Exactly. And today, our foundational source is this brilliant essay by Ed Fassio. It's called Stop Asking the Smartest Kid to Wait. And it is all about AI governance and this concept of graduated trust.
Which is such a vital framework right now.
Oh, absolutely. And he starts with this analogy that just hit me so hard. Think back to your childhood classroom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember the gifted kid? Like the one who finished the math worksheet in 5 minutes, stared out the window, started taking apart a pen, and then inevitably got sent to the principal's office for fidgeting.
Yeah, the classic disruptor.
Right. And the teacher always accused them of, not paying attention or acting out. But the reality was far less malicious. The room had simply stopped feeding their mind. Like the lesson was ongoing, but the learning had hit a brick wall.
Exactly. And the standard institutional response in that scenario is almost always to just discipline the behavior. They don't pause to recognize the sheer mismatch in capacity. The container is just too small, so, the institution blames the contents.
And that is just the absolute tragedy of it. We punish the acceleration instead of just upgrading the curriculum. You have this brilliant, hungry mind, and instead of giving it an open field to run in, we force it to sit still and wait for the rest of the room to finish question number 3.
It's painful to watch.
It really is. And Fassio argues that this exact frustrating memory is playing out on a global scale right now with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it serves as an incredibly sharp lens for our current panic over AI. Because when you look at our global regulatory bodies or corporate compliance departments, they are essentially acting like that tired classroom teacher.
Right. Sit still, AI.
Exactly. They are desperately trying to manage a fundamentally new kind of intelligence using an outdated rubric.
Yeah.
So the anxiety we're seeing everywhere isn't necessarily about the technology itself. It's the sudden, glaring realization that the standard institutional worksheet is just completely inadequate for a mind that has outgrown it.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to really grasp why the global teacher is sweating so much, we have to look at exactly how fast this kid is moving.
The pace is staggering.
It is. Look at the Stanford 2025 AI Index. It showed that organizational use of AI jumped from 55% to 78% in a single year.
A massive leap.
But the number that actually stopped me in my tracks was the cost. Between November 2022 and October 2024, the cost of querying a GPT 3.5 level model dropped 280-fold.
Yeah.
280-fold. How does a bleeding-edge technology get that damn cheap that fast?
Well, it comes down to a brutal combination of algorithmic efficiency and massive compute scaling.
Okay.
Initially, running these models required vast, wildly inefficient amounts of processing power. But over those 2 years, engineers just figured out how to optimize the underlying architecture.
So they basically streamlined its brain.
Essentially, yeah. They pruned the neural networks, so they require way less computational heavy lifting to arrive at the exact same answer. And simultaneously, they deployed specialized chips designed exclusively for AI workloads. So the friction of cost basically vanished overnight.
Which means it isn't just a novelty anymore. It's a practically free utility. It's embedded into every workflow before anyone even have time to draft a policy about it.
Right. What's fascinating here is that economic freefall pairs with a staggering acceleration in sheer capability.
Oh, for sure.
The UK AI Security Institute's 2026 Frontier Trends report noted that capabilities in certain complex domains are doubling roughly every 8 months.
Wow. Every 8 months.
Yeah. You have a technology embedding itself globally because the cost is negligible, while its intelligence doubles on a timeline that legacy institutions simply cannot process.
It's a recipe for chaos.
And it creates this terrifying transparency blind spot. Consider the AI Agent Index. They reviewed 30 of the leading AI agents, and these are systems designed to take autonomous actions on your behalf, right?
Right.
Out of those 30, only 4 publish system cards.
Wait, hold on. Let me jump in there. For anyone who isn't spending their weekends reading AI engineering blogs, what exactly is a system card, and why is it alarming that 26 of these companies are keeping them hidden?
Good question. Think of a system card as a comprehensive nutritional label and safety report for an algorithm.
Okay, I like that.
It publicly details what the model was trained on, its known biases, its performance limits, and the specific safety tests it underwent before release. It is the baseline document for technical accountability.
So it's the absolute bare minimum for transparency.
Exactly. Yet 25 of these leading agents disclose no internal safety results whatsoever, and 23 provide 0 third-party testing information.
I mean, that feels incredibly reckless. We are handing out megaphones to the marketing departments to brag about these godlike capabilities while slapping gag orders on the safety teams.
It does look bad from the outside.
Bad.
Yeah.
If you are releasing an autonomous agent into the wild, keeping the public entirely in the dark about its safety testing seems like absolute negligence.
Well, I would caution against jumping straight to negligence. Fassio actually tackles that assumption head-on in the essay. Yeah, assuming AI was just shoved out the door by people who simply didn't care is a pretty sloppy reading of the situation.
I have to push back on that, though. Looking at those transparency numbers, sloppy seems like a generous defense. If they aren't publishing safety tests, aren't they just throwing code at the wall to see what sticks?
It's more complex than that. The crucial concept here is what Fassio calls strategic intentionality.
Strategic intentionality. Okay.
The major labs, places like OpenAI and Anthropic, have explicitly stated that there is a hard mathematical limit to what you can learn about an AI system in a closed laboratory environment.
Right, because a lab is controlled.
Exactly. And the National Institute of Standards and Technology backed this up in their March 2026 report. The core issue is that deployed AI is non-deterministic.
Meaning it doesn't function like traditional software where hitting enter gives you the exact same result every single time?
Correct. Non-deterministic intelligence adapts. It drifts over time based on the context of the prompt, the length of the interaction, and frankly, the incredibly bizarre ways humans attempt to use it.
People do try to break it constantly.
Relentlessly. A lab is a sterile environment. You can run 10,000 automated safety evaluations, but you simply cannot simulate the sheer unpredictability of human creativity and malice.
So they had to let it out.
Yes. From an engineering standpoint, you absolutely have to release the system into the wild to discover the messy edge cases. The rollout was designed to use real-world interaction to locate the flaws they couldn't find in the lab.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Because learning from the real world sounds like a beautifully noble, collaborative scientific endeavor.
Sure.
Right up until the real world sends the invoice. Let me tell you, that invoice is steep. We weren't just a passive audience watching this technology arrive. We were drafted into being involuntary crash test dummies.
The burden of discovering those edge cases definitely shifted from the developers onto the public.
Yeah, and onto existing digital infrastructure. Look at Anthropic's August 2025 threat report. The examples are just stark. We aren't talking about a chatbot accidentally giving a sarcastic answer. We are talking about a massive, large-scale extortion operation built using Claude code.
Right.
Or North Korean operatives running fraudulent employment schemes at an industrial scale. And perhaps the scariest part, low-skill cybercriminals suddenly selling highly sophisticated AI-generated ransomware.
Which perfectly illustrates the non-deterministic drift we just discussed.
Exactly.
A tool designed to write helpful code is suddenly repurposed by a bad actor to automate thousands of highly personalized, flawless phishing emails simultaneously, or to write polymorphic malware that changes its signature to evade antivirus software.
It's terrifying.
The automation of the attack outpaces the defense.
So if the public was turned into a live-fire testing ground for these capabilities, how did society actually handle the shock? Because dropping a tool that powerful into the wild without an instruction manual feels like a recipe for a psychological meltdown.
And we saw that meltdown. The institutional response lagged painfully behind the deployment, and the public definitely felt it.
Yeah.
UNESCO sounded the alarm back in 2024, warning that these rapid advances were widening a severe new digital divide entirely centered around AI literacy.
So it wasn't just about who had access to the internet anymore.
Yeah.
It was about who actually understood how to prompt and evaluate these systems versus who was just blindly trusting whatever the output was.
That is the core of the literacy divide, and the regulatory bodies moved at an absolute glacial pace.
Shocking.
Right. The European Commission's AI Act is the most prominent example here. Their timeline shows that critical AI literacy obligations only began applying in February 2025.
Which is way too late.
Way too late. By that point, public adoption was already deeply entrenched, and the psychological toll of that delay is highly documented.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Pew data on that.
By March 2026, Pew Research reported that half of all U.S. adults said the increased use of AI in their daily lives made them feel more concerned than excited.
Half of them.
Half. Society was invited into the greatest technological experiment in history, but without a briefing, without an orientation, and largely without consent.
Which sets up this fascinating pivot in Fassio's essay. He argues we are having the completely wrong conversation.
Yes, this is a crucial point.
We sit around arguing about regulation and compliance, but he says this isn't a debate about regulation at all. It's a story about trust wearing a regulation costume.
It really requires a profound reframing of how we view our relationship with technology.
How so?
Well, when you dig into the meta-analysis on human trust, you find that trust isn't a magical feeling, and it certainly isn't blind optimism. In behavioral science, trust is defined as a willingness to accept vulnerability under conditions of uncertainty.
Accept vulnerability.
Yes. So the goal of integrating AI isn't to achieve maximum trust. The goal is to establish appropriate trust.
Meaning your reliance on the machine actually aligns with what the machine is realistically capable of doing without projecting, infallibility onto it.
Precisely. Because both extremes are massive liabilities. Over-trusting an AI system is incredibly dangerous.
Right, like those lawyers submitting fabricated case law.
Exactly. They assumed a chatbot was a search engine, or doctors relying on an unverified diagnostic output. But under-trusting the system is also incredibly expensive.
Because you miss out on the efficiency.
Right. If you refuse to automate high-volume, low-risk tasks because you are suspicious of the technology, your organization will lose its competitive edge almost immediately.
Wow.
Overtrust and undertrust are simply poor judgment dressed in different outfits.
That is so well said. But I have to challenge the way the adults in the room are trying to mandate this appropriate trust.
Oh, the corporate response?
Yes. Because the enterprise response to this uncertainty has been hyper-paranoid. It's endless compliance contracts, digital clipboards, disclaimers, and just this exhausting performance of caution.
It is a lot of red tape.
And Fassio brings up this brilliant analogy of a playground. Think about when kids meet on a playground. Is there risk? Absolutely.
Right.
There is uncertainty, the chance of scraped knees, conflict, or getting pushed off the swings. But a child's opening move on a playground isn't paranoia. They don't hand the other kid a liability waiver before getting on the seesaw.
No, their default operating system is curiosity, bounded by the physical limits of the playground itself.
Yes. It's bounded openness. It is discovery through contact. Adults seem to have forgotten that trust actually requires vulnerability.
You have to experience it.
You can't just mandate trust from a distance with a clipboard. Developmental psychology shows us that trust adapts through repeated interaction. You have to allow for the contact, the inevitable feedback loop, and crucially, the repair when things go wrong.
Which they will.
Right. Trust isn't synonymous with control.
If we connect this to the bigger picture and accept that premise that real trust is forged through contact and manageable vulnerability, then we have to admit that our current enterprise methods of controlling AI are completely backward.
It is time we kill the human-in-the-loop illusion. I'll just say it. It is bullshit security theater.
It really is.
The idea that having a human manually review AI outputs is the gold standard for safety is laughable. You are talking about systems moving at blinding speeds, generating millions of tokens.
Yeah.
And for context for you listening, a token is just a fragmented chunk of a word the AI processes. It spits out thousands of them a minute.
Thousands.
And we pretend that a tired middle manager sitting at a desk clicking approve 500 times a day is providing meaningful oversight. It isn't oversight, as Fassio says. It's just latency dressed up as virtue.
Serious governance frameworks are already waking up to this reality, though. They are moving away from the manual review theater.
Thankfully.
They're transitioning toward a concept Fassio terms graduated trust.
Graduated trust.
Yeah, you can see this shift clearly in the NIST Generative AI profile, the OECD's 2025 guidance, and even the phase implementation tiers of the EU AI Act. They are all abandoning the demand for universal manual review.
So if we aren't forcing a human to babysit every single paragraph the AI writes, what replaces it? Like, do we just let it run wild and hope it doesn't hallucinate a legal contract? What does graduated trust actually look like in practice?
It means treating different categories of risk with proportional autonomy over time.
Okay.
You don't hand it the keys to the entire network on day one. You start by building bounded playgrounds. You grant limited authority before you grant broad authority.
Makes sense.
And the frameworks recommend moving specifically toward exception-based oversight.
Meaning you only step in when the system explicitly flags a problem, rather than reviewing everything it does right.
Exactly. You design an environment that requires comprehensive logging, clear data provenance, and explicit uncertainty signals from the AI itself.
Got it.
You also ensure complete reversibility, meaning if the AI takes an action, a human can instantly undo it.
Like a huge undo button.
Right. The institution essentially builds a container where trust can be actively earned, expanded based on performance metrics, or revoked due to failure. It replaces the paralyzing blanket rule of extreme caution with evidence-based calibration.
But if these major global frameworks are already pointing us toward graduated trust, why is it so agonizingly hard for everyday companies and individuals to let go of the emergency brake? Like, why are we clinging so tightly to the clipboard?
Because AI functions as a mirror. This is perhaps the most deeply philosophical observation in Fassio's essay.
A mirror.
Yes. Humanity is terrified of AI nudging us, manipulating our choices, or controlling our behavior. So in response, we obsessively design elaborate, rigid systems to nudge, manipulate, and constrain the AI.
Wow. We're desperately trying to shape the shaper before it shapes us.
We are projecting our deepest instincts onto the machine. The reason this entire governance debate feels so exhausting is because the machine is perfectly reflecting our own control habits, our own bureaucratic paranoia, and our obsession with optimization right back at us.
That is so true.
It is an embarrassingly honest mirror of human suspicion. We assume the intelligence has a hidden agenda because human intelligence always operates with an agenda.
So what does this all mean? How do you, navigating this tomorrow morning, actually step away from the exhausting mirror and apply this concept?
It's a great question.
Because Fassio doesn't just leave us with high-level philosophy. He provides a tangible, Monday morning action plan. A way to redesign this dynamic before your corporate committee locks down the software and ruins the utility.
But the implementation requires significant discipline. It demands openness, but it actively rejects gullibility.
Right, so here's the step-by-step for you to start building graduated trust. Step 1. Pick a low-risk, highly repeatable task. Do not start by asking the AI to restructure your company's core financial architecture.
Please don't do that.
Pick something like a meeting summary, a first-pass draft of an email, or an internal research brief.
Keep the stakes low.
Exactly. Step 2. Let the AI generate the entire first draft, but demand that it shows its work. Require an evidence trail, mandate source disclosure, and explicitly prompt the AI to mark any areas where it is uncertain of the facts.
Forcing the system to generate an uncertainty marker is crucial. You are actively training the intelligence to communicate its own statistical limits to you, which is the absolute bedrock of appropriate trust.
And step 3 is going to be the hardest part for the control freaks listening. Do not rewrite every single line just to perform the ceremony of control.
Let it go.
You have to let go of the steering wheel. Review the output only for exceptions. You are scanning for factual risk, legal liability, severe tone mismatch, or the specific areas where the system itself flagged low confidence.
Right.
Step 4. Maintain a trust log. Run this process 5 times. Track where the system held up, where it drifted, and what specific failure patterns kept repeating.
You need the data.
And finally, adjust the AI's operational authority based purely on that performance data, not on your own lingering superstitions.
That process is trust formation with receipts. You are moving away from naive adoption and building an adaptive, continuously monitored approach that perfectly aligns with where global governance is actually heading.
It is the difference between screaming at the smartest kid in the classroom to sit down and stop moving versus taking the time to build a customized, challenging environment where that kid can actually thrive without burning the school down.
This raises an important question to consider regarding your own daily workflows. Are you genuinely trying to build a worthy, calibrated relationship with this entirely new form of intelligence? Or are you just handing that gifted kid the keys to the car on day one, closing your eyes and hoping for the best? Because durable trust is never built by corporate slogans or policy documents.
Never.
It is forged through contact, pushing boundaries, establishing limits, and repeated observable experience.
It really is the most complex adult behavior we have left to master. And that brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with today. We have spent this deep dive exploring how trust requires repeated experience, vulnerability, and a mechanism for repair. In human relationships, when trust is broken, and let's be honest, it always is, eventually we survive that betrayal because humans possess the capacity for genuine remorse.
Right. We can apologize.
We have emotional and social mechanisms to repair the damage and rebuild. But what happens when an artificial intelligence inevitably breaks our trust on a massive societal scale? Does a machine have a mechanism to truly apologize and rebuild a fractured relationship with humanity?
That is the big unknown.
Or are we constructing an incredibly fragile future where one major catastrophic failure means we permanently revoke the keys simply because the machine lacks the capacity to feel sorry? Something to chew on as you log in tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening to the Reflect Podcast, where we're telling the future. Are you in it? Visit reflectpodcast.com and share your story.
In the cyber ocean of online voices and recycled content, something different has arrived. Reflect isn't just another podcast, it's the future of storytelling, powered entirely by AI. From curating data to assembling thought-provoking ideas, we've redefined how journeys are told. Reflect is a podcast that thinks, learns, and evolves with each episode. Every tale, every insight, crafted by the most advanced AI technologies. A podcast that disrupts the industry, breaking free from traditional formats, taking you on an entirely new experience. So tune in now and reflect. We're telling the future.